And welcome to the Sandy Golston BookTube channel. And this is just a quick pop-up. Not sure how many people are going to be able to join me here tonight, but just thought I would pop up in the house and take a look at what you see on the screen right now. And that is the Goodreads Choice Awards for 2020. The best books of 2020, announcing the winners of the 12th annual Goodreads Choice Awards, the only major book awards decided by readers. Congratulations to the best books of the year. And as you look at the votes cast, you see 5.6 million votes cast in the Goodreads Choice Awards 2020. So that's obviously an impressive number and really speaks to the amount of traffic that's coming through Goodreads. And of course, I'm one of them. I have my Goodreads account and I do use Goodreads actually pretty aggressively. So it's going to be kind of interesting as I'm going through this now. And I've kind of glanced at it before. So I'm kind of curious to just go through some of these because while I've read, I think my Goodreads total right now at about December the 10th, my Goodreads total of reads so far this year, I shouldn't say so far this year, coming toward the end of the year is 68 books read for me. I just finished Pretty Little Wife yesterday, maybe 2 days ago. I finished that and I'm getting ready to jump into some other books, including a Sarah J. Maas book. So I'm trying to expand my reading tastes right here. Let's see. Oh, hello, Lucy B. Thank you for joining me, for popping up in here. That's certainly great to have you here. And the guest list, Aaron is pointing out the guest list, and you can see that the guest list is definitely featured right there as you start to look through some of the categories. Now, the first thing I'll say right off the bat, I have not read a ton of these categories. So there are going to be a lot of books here that I'm not necessarily going to be able to speak to, but others who may be more familiar will possibly be able to speak to some of these books. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the results here. And as it pops up, now this is one best fiction. You can see the winner was 72,828 votes, and that would be Matt Haig's The Midnight Library. Now, I have to say, to be honest, I hadn't really heard that much of this book. I'd really heard a lot more of other books that you'll see as I start to scroll down here a little bit. But that was the winner by actually a pretty decent margin over second place. So let's go ahead and take a look here. And you can see among all nominees, 500,000 votes cast, 506,978 votes cast. And The Midnight Library got the most, actually not by a whole lot. Now that I'm looking at it again. So just a handful of votes here, apparently. So wow. So pretty impressive there. And then Friedrich Bachmann, Anxious People. That's a book that I did see. I think it was on maybe Book of the Month. It might have been popping up there on Book of the Month. And I know I looked at that book at some point, and there's some other books by him that I was actually interested in and haven't gotten yet, but still probably I'm going to think about getting. So that's the second place book. Now, here's where it gets interesting because the next three books I've read, and all three I really liked. Two of them I really, really liked. And so number three is the very controversial American Dirt by Janine Cummins. That's a book that, of course, raised a lot of eyebrows from race and ethnicity standpoints, and the arguments about authenticity and who can write what, who can really speak to what issues. Became kind of a hot button topic with American Dirt. So that's pretty impressive that book got as many votes as it did, considering the controversy surrounding it. So that is, again, very, very impressive. I read American Dirt, and I actually did a video about the controversy surrounding it and my thoughts about whether I should or should not read it. And eventually I did decide to read it because I felt like, it we should all make our own choices about what we want to read and not necessarily rely on the choices or the opinions of other people who have had a chance to read. So anytime you see a book that is either a banned book or is a book that people are discouraging you to read, my suggestion is always judge for yourself. And if you decide that you don't like it, or if you decide that the criticism is valid, then so be it. But at least you've had a chance to read it and make your own decisions. So I would definitely always encourage people to make their own decisions there. So American Dirt, 67,226 votes, followed by Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed, which, again, another book that I read. And I did like it. My first reaction after reading it was I liked it, but I didn't like it as much as some other people did. But then after thinking about it a little bit more and kind of reassessing it, I kind of raised my opinion of the book considerably to the point that it's probably, my opinion of it is higher and probably right in line with what I think a lot of other people are feeling. So I think I probably elevated it to 4-star status. Not quite 5 stars, but oh, by the way, American Dirt I did rate as a 5-star book this year. So one of the very few 5-star books that I gave out this year. So Such a Fun Age, Kylie Reed, 59,356 votes, an average rating of 3.85, 189,000 ratings. Book was published in 2019. Actually, I forgot to look at American Dirt. American Dirt averaged 4.32 rating, so pretty solidly in the 4-star range for a lot of people. And 4.32 indicates probably a good number of 5-star ratings. So again, that speaks highly about American Dirt. Janine Cummins, the author of that particular book. Next up is the last of the 3 books so far of the ones that I can see that I read, and that is My Dark Vanessa. And as you can see, the little star there says that was my choice, and that was the book that I picked, that I voted for as the top choice. So you can see I was in the top 5, but not number 1. So for those of you who are competitive, you probably would be feeling a little bit bummed out there that your choice did not win. But 664 votes for My Dark Vanessa. So you can see a pretty big gap there between 4 and 5 right there. So a gap of nearly 11,000 votes. So that's a pretty sizable margin. So the top 4, pretty solid there from the readers of Goodreads. So that speaks pretty highly. So I guess I have different tastes. I will say one thing about My Dark Vanessa. It is, it is dark. And it is a controversial topic of, about an inappropriate relationship between teacher and students. And it's very triggering for a lot of people, as is probably American Dirt is very triggering. And to some extent, Such a Fun Age is probably triggering as well. But I picked it. I rated it a 5-star book. Oh, it looks like I did. I had Such a Fun Age. I never did change the rating, so I still have it at 3 stars. And then you can see right there, I gave 5 stars to American Dirt. So let's see what else we got here, because a lot of the rest of these books, I don't think. Let me look through here. I don't think I read any of the rest. Real Life is a book that someone I saw recommended on BookTube, and it sounded really good. So let's see here. It's probably going to take me off the page. Nope, it's going to let me stay on. Almost everything about Wallace is at odds with the Midwestern University town he is working uneasily toward a biochem degree, where he is working uneasily toward a biochem degree. An introverted young man from Alabama, Black and queer, he has left behind his family without escaping the long shadows of his childhood. For reasons of self-preservation, Wallace has enforced a wary distance even within his own circle of friends. But over the course of a late summer weekend, a series of confrontations with colleagues and an unexpected encounter with an ostensibly straight white classmate conspired to fracture his defenses while exposing long hidden currents of hostility and desire within their community. So, sounded kind of interesting, and I haven't bought it yet, but it definitely is. It's on my radar. So it's probably something I'll be thinking about at some point. So looking back here, there's a couple other books I think I was interested in. A Burning was a book that I kind of looked at. Writers and Lovers by Lily King, was one that I looked at. Big Summer, I looked at that one. Transcendent Kingdom, I think, was a book of the month selection. So anyway, maybe I'll have to check out the Midnight Library and see what's going on with that. All right, so let's go on to mystery and thriller, another category that I am quite familiar with. And the winner is The Guest List. And let's see. Now, I read a number of books in this category. And let's see. So The Guest List is your winner by a significant margin, 73,605 votes for The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I did read The Guest List and I liked it, didn't love it, but I did like it. It was a good story. It was a good kind of a closed trope story that is can be very interesting to a lot of people. And I did like it. Again, I didn't love it, but I liked it. There were some other books in this category that I did read and liked a little bit more. So let's go on to that. You can see right there with The Guest List, I gave it a 3-star rating. And let's see. Average rating for The Guest List, 3.86. So a lot of 4-star reviews. So just right there, nudging up against 4 stars. So again, 3.86, that's indicative, you would think, of a good number of 4-star reviews. So it looks like I was pretty close in line right there. I could have gone up to 4 stars and been very comfortable with that particular book. So The Guest List there. Home Before Dark was a book by Riley Sager. And those of you who follow my channel, you know that I'm a big Riley Sager fan. Riley Sager is an auto buy for me. When I see any of his books, that's just automatic. And he just announced that he's going to have a book that's coming out in the summer of 2021. And that's one I'm definitely excited about. There's a video on this channel talking about my excitement at the announcement of that particular book. And I think they moved up the pub date for that I think they moved it up to June. So I know a lot of people will be looking for that come June 2021. So, all right, Home Before Dark, I rated it 4 stars. And it looks like an average rating of 4.16. So again, that means a lot of people gave it a 5-star review, which is impressive. It was another book that I liked it at first. And then I kind of took a step back from it. Like, well, let me think about it a little bit more and, maybe reconsider my feelings about it. And then as I stepped back from it a little bit more, I thought, well, the more I think about it, I'm like, I really kind of digging it, a little bit more. And so I ended up giving it 4 stars. It's kind of a dual timeline book in the sense that you have the current timeline and then you have the story told through the book written by the main character's father. And then the mystery kind of converges at the end and it kind of eventually makes sense. But it could be for some people, I could see where it might be a little bit difficult to follow. If you weren't into the book within the book, it might be a little bit difficult, but it was kind of classic Riley Sager and I did enjoy it. So kudos to Riley Sager for another good one. Next was my choice, although I could literally flip a coin between Home Before Dark and The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. I rated it 4 stars. It has an average rating of 4.06 on Goodreads. So kind of, again, another mystery, dual timeline mystery with a little supernatural factor in there that I thought was a little different than what I would normally read. But at the same time, it was good. I enjoyed it. I really liked it. I thought it was good. The dual timeline, sometimes you get married to one timeline more than the other, and it could end up maybe not being quite as fun. if you're not into one timeline, you might find yourself just skipping past one timeline or maybe skimming one timeline to get to the timeline that you're more attracted to. So yeah, so Sundown Motel by Simone St. James, really enjoyed it. 4-star rating for me. Next up is one that I have not read, and yet it was one that I was interested in. I think it was the one that has to do with gentrification or something like that. Yeah, the gentrification of a Brooklyn neighborhood takes on a sinister meaning. Sydney Green is Brooklyn born and raised, but her beloved neighborhood seems to change every time she blinks. Let's see, condos are sprouting like weeds for sale. Signs are popping up. Let's see. Their neighbors may not have moved to the suburbs after all, and the push to revitalize the community may be more deadly than advertised. When does coincidence become conspiracy? Where do people go when gentrification pushes them out? Can Sydney and Theo trust each other or themselves long enough to find out before they too disappear? Wow. So now I'm reading it again. It sounds a little bit more interesting. 3.65 average rating, 13K ratings here. Book was published in 2020. I think that's one I'm gonna have to take a look at. It sounds a little bit more interesting that now that I've read it. Read the description here a little bit. Let's see what else is on here. The Wise by Taryn Fisher. Not overly familiar with that one. Let's see. The Searcher by Tana. I'm guessing that is French. Let's see. Retired Rhode Island. Yeah. Okay. Harlan Coben is an author that I've read a lot over the years, and not as much recently from him. This one does sound kind of interesting. I've looked at this a few times and nearly pulled the trigger on it a few times. Average rating of 3.99, nearly 40,000 ratings for this particular Harlan Coben book. One-on-One by Ruth Ware is one that I've seen a little bit, and I've actually thought about that one. Looks like maybe a closed circle trope type story here. Let's see. Returns with another suspenseful thriller set on a snow-covered mountain. So yeah, getting that kind of closed circle trope maybe, which is good. You get a limited amount of characters. You get a chance to know the characters a little bit better, and can make sometimes for a little bit more of a fast-paced and yet interesting story. Let's see. Long Bright River is a book, I think, again, that was on Book of the Month, and I've passed on it a few times, but it does sound interesting. Winter Counts. That's a book that I did pick up from Book of the Month. I have not had a chance to read it yet, but it did sound good. Wow, Night Swim is a book that I read down here, and I really like that one. This is a Book of the Month one. This is a month that I thought was going to be kind of a lackluster month with the selections that they had, and yet it ended up being like a pretty good read there. It was an unexpected pleasure reading it, though it is, again, a dark and kind of triggering type of subject matter that I won't talk too much about it here, but it is kind of triggering, and it does have some interesting detail to it that I can understand why some people probably weren't quite as high on it. Although I'm sitting here looking at it, and while it didn't get a lot of votes, it did get pretty good rating there. 4.13 average rating, 28,000 votes. So I think this was published about halfway through the year. So maybe at a little bit of a disadvantage, possibly, for getting votes. But I liked it. I thought it was good, and I rated it, as you can see, a 4-star. So that looked pretty good. Let's see, First Girl Gone. I haven't seen this one. Let's see what this is all about. Down the beach, she can just make out the rusting hulk of the Ferris wheel through the dark mist. The hairs prickle. Oh, this is a deep description right here. Deep synopsis here. That sounds kind of interesting. Might be one I could end up checking out. All right, let's see what they got in historical fiction here. I don't read a whole lot of historical fiction. I don't know if I've read anything in this category. Let's see. The Vanishing Half. I don't know if, well, for what it's worth, I've heard of The Vanishing Half, and so have a lot of other people because it won in a landslide here. The Vanishing Half. Let's see what this is all about. Let's go ahead and investigate this. See what this is all about. Oh, yeah, this could be interesting. I can see just looking at the description is I can see why people were excited about this. Although I would imagine it could be somewhat triggering. So it's historical fiction, but not exactly, 1600s historical fiction. This goes back, looks like during kind of the Jim Crow civil rights movement era. It says from the 1950s to the 1990s. So in and then beyond the what you would consider the modern civil rights era. So that's yeah, I might have to rethink that one. That could be one that's very interesting. I don't read a lot of historical fiction, so this is probably not my category. So I won't spend a whole lot of time on here. Let me see if there's at least any other books on here that I've heard of. I've heard of Louise Erdrich, but I'm not familiar with this particular book. And I'd be hard. Yeah, Native. I think it's okay. She's a Native American writer. I think I read for a college class. I might have read one of her books. I'd be hard pressed to remember which one it was. Betty is one I've seen. That might be on Book of the Month too. So that might be one that's. I think I looked at that but didn't pull the trigger on it. So all right, let's move on to fantasy. Let's see what they're talking about over here in fantasy. And, oh, what a surprise. What a surprise. Number one in best fantasy category is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. And I'm actually one of the books that I just picked up and I just started reading was a Sarah J. Maas book. So I decided that I was going to give her and another author that I'll cross paths with here as I move down this list. I'm trying to expand my reading interests into the fantasy category here. Nazy, one of my good buddies over here. Let's see what Nazy. I've read The Vanishing Half and Deacon King Kong, both good reads. Okay, all right. I'll have to. I'm trying to expand my reading interest, so I'm actually always up for good reads in different categories. So I'm definitely willing to check out something. In fact, I think for my TBRs next year in 2021, I'm going to make a pledge to, I'm going to pledge a certain amount of books in categories that I don't normally read. So I'm definitely up for recommendations. If you have some good ones that in the fantasy or historical fiction areas, then I would definitely be open to hearing some of those. All right. So House of Earth and Blood, I think I'm going to get this one. I think Sarah J. Maas, from my understanding of her, and I don't know about her as well as a lot of other people, but she tends to write series. All her books, I think, tend to be in a series. So I believe this is the first of the Crescent City series. So I may have to test that one out. But I hate to, like probably most people, especially if a series is progressive, that you don't necessarily want to jump in afterward and then not start from the beginning. So we'll see if I can start from the beginning here. Okay, you're saying that was Deacon King Kong was one of my top reads. I have to go back and check that out again a little bit more and see what's going on with that one. All right, so let's see here. Fantasy, House of Earth and Blood won a narrow victory by just not even 2,000 votes over its second place finisher here. And let's see. It sounded good, and I've been close to pulling the trigger on it. And I think I am going to go ahead and pick that one up. Let's see that one. Let's see what the average rating of 4.43, almost 90,000 ratings, and that's pretty solid. Again, 4.43. That means a lot of people gave it 5 stars, so that should probably speak pretty highly of that book. And second place with 93,262 votes, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Let's Let's see a little bit more about this one. I've kind of seen this book, and I have seen a lot of people talking about it. Average rating of 4.41. So again, that speaks pretty highly of this particular book. Extraordinary Life, and a dazzling adventure that will play out across centuries and continents, across history and art, as a young woman learns how far she will go to leave her mark on the world. But everything changes when, after nearly 300 years, Addie stumbles across a man in a hidden bookstore and he remembers her name. Sounds very interesting. I have seen that book a lot, and I've seen a lot of booktubers talking about this particular book. No, this is a book I haven't really heard anybody talking about it, but it did perform pretty well. Brandon Sanderson. I feel like I'm like the only booktuber that has not read Brandon Sanderson, and for that matter, Sarah J. Maas. But Brandon Sanderson is interesting because you can see 4.71 average rating. Wow, that's like almost 5 stars across the board. So I might have to check this one out if it's getting that kind of love. I might have to check this out. I will say about Brandon Sanderson, I've been reading. I've not been reading. Excuse me. I've been watching some of his lectures about the fundamentals of writing, and they're actually very, very good. So if you're on YouTube and you're looking around, and you could find some lectures from him. Fantasy is not something I normally read, but I've heard good chatter about The City We Became. That's one that's coming up too. I have heard some things about that one as well. Let's see. So let's scroll on down to The City We Became. And first and foremost, I think the cover art is pretty compelling there. Actually, I didn't mean to do that. Let me see if I can get back here. Just meant to kind of hover over it here a little bit. The cover art, I think, is actually pretty compelling. That I've heard a lot of people talking about that as well. Let's see what this is all about. 5 New Yorkers must come together in order to defend their city from an ancient evil in the first book of a stunning new series by Hugo Award-winning and New York Times bestselling author N.K. Jemisin or something, I guess. I don't know. Hopefully I pronounced that right. We'll say Jemisin. That's what we'll call it. Every great city has a soul. Some are as ancient as myths, and others are as new and destructive as children. Okay. Sounds kind of dark. New York City, she's got 6. But every city also has a dark side. A roiling ancient evil stirs in the halls of power, threatening to destroy the city and her 6 newborn avatars unless they can come together and stop it once and for all. It's interesting. You're vouching for it, Nazy? It sounds kind of interesting. I haven't actually read that much about it. I do like that it's the first part of a series, so that is one of the things that could make me a little bit more willing to give it a try, because I do want to try to move into this category a little bit. It just, in addition to expanding my reading taste, it just kind of makes sense that it gives me more of an opportunity to talk about some stories, some books that other people are reading. So a little bit more of an opportunity to have some good dialogue going right there. So let's see if there's anything else in this category that jumps out at me. Yeah, a lot of these books I haven't really heard that much about, so can't really speak to most of these. All right, let's go on over to romance. From Blood and Ash. I've actually heard of that. I can't tell you. I think it was, and I think the person that I heard about this from was talking about the cover art, how much they liked the cover art for this particular book. So From Blood and Ash, from Jennifer L. Armentrout, 70,896 votes. So wins by a solid margin, more than 10,000 over Beach Read by Emily Henry. I'll get to that in a second. Let's see. Average rating of 4.43, 38,644 ratings. So when you see some of the amounts of ratings in other categories, you can see other categories, probably had some more reviews there. But this is looking pretty good here. Let's see. Yeah, it could be That could be one I might look at some point. And then there's Beach Read. Beach Read is number 2, 60,124 votes, and average rating of 4.04, 98,000 total ratings for this one, and 38,000. I'm guessing this one must have come out maybe a little bit later in the year and maybe had a bigger impact. So Beach Read is one that I did buy. I think there was a flash sale for it for the ebook on Amazon.com, and so I ended up picking it up for my Kindle. And I just haven't gotten around to reading it. It's one that I've kind of been thinking about a little bit. I think this is the one where the two authors and they write each other's book or something like that. And yeah, they get like writer's block. Until one hazy evening, one thing leads to another, and they strike a deal designed to force them out of their creative ruts. Augustus will spend the summer writing something happy, and January will. Well, people come up with some interesting names, don't they? January will pen the next great American novel. She'll take him on field trips worthy of any rom-com montage, and he'll take her to interview surviving members of a backwoods death cult. Wow, that's deep. Everyone will finish a book and no one will fall in love. Really? That's interesting. Almost counterintuitive. Let's see what else is in this category, because I don't know if I read anything in this category. In 5 years, not really familiar with that one. Yeah, not really. Regretting You. I think I've seen this book cover and I thought it was kind of interesting, but I did not really dig too much into it. I see the Chloe, the Brown Sisters series continues, and a lot of people are pretty high on that one. 4.15 rating for that one. So one to watch. That's a cover I've seen before. Let's see, anything on here? Jasmine Gilroy, or however you pronounce that name. Sorry, I'm really bad at pronouncing names. I think she wrote another book that I saw. Maybe it's a little bit older book from her. Let's see, anything else in here jumping out at me? Hands down, I'm a big sports fan, so I'm gonna take the plunge on this one. Let's see what's going on here. Let's see. Before he was Big Texas, he was Zach the Snack Pack. Bianca Brannon knows time mostly heals all wounds, including those your once loved ones might have unintentionally given you. Those just take a little longer, apparently. She thinks she's ready when a call has her walking back into her old friend's life, or at least as prepared as possible to see the starting quarterback in the National Football Organization, the NFL. Okay. Before the lights, the fans, and millions. He's been a skinny kid with a heart of gold. Waltzing out of Zach Travis's life should be easy, just as easy as he walked out of hers. Okay. Well, could be interesting. I'm kind of a sucker sometimes for a good sports story. All right, so I might have to check that category out a little bit more. Romance. I apparently don't read a lot of romance stories. All right, best science fiction. This is definitely a category I don't read a whole lot of, so I'm going to plead ignorance largely in this category. Let's see. All right, so number one with 45,833 votes, To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. Christopher Paolini. Tell you what, usually you get into this category and you're going to see some pretty good, you typically see pretty good cover art here. So I think that's typically what you see here. Yeah, one of the things about science fiction that I have a hard time with, honestly, is world building. And if world building is like too complex and I don't have the energy to really stick with it, then that's when I start to register books in TBR, and it's not TBR, excuse me, in DNF, because I'm usually just don't have the patience to really cling to the world building, unless there's something that they do at the beginning where they have like a legend or something in the beginning and you can reference it. You can go back and figure out what the world building is. And what this country is that they're talking about that you can't remember because you're just used to the actual countries that you actually know. For those of you who are any good at geography. So, all right, let's go to horror. Not sure I read anything in the horror category either. Oh, Mexican Gothic. How many times in Book of the Month did I pass on Mexican Gothic? And lo and behold, Mexican Gothic wins in an absolute landslide over second place. 85,626 votes. The next book is Stephen King's If It Bleeds with 47,552. So the voters made their voice heard there, didn't they? Wow, that is an impressive win right there. This sounds good. It's just other books that I've just wanted more. I think I'm just gonna go on my book of the month. I'm just gonna put it in my basket as one of my add-ons, and then I'll have an opportunity to add one other book, and then I'll go with presumably a feature selection, and then it'll be a wrap for my January 2021 book of the month selections. So, all right. So let's see, Stephen King. I've actually been had a renewed interest in Stephen King lately. Okay, so I don't know. It sounds like this might be a collection book. Stephen King writes a lot of collection books. Let's see. The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. Not a big vampire book reader. Not scared of it or anything. I'm just never really been my thing. The Year of Witching. Have not heard of that book at all. Well, let's see. I guess it shows you how narrow my reading interests are. Yeah, I haven't heard of many of these books. This one I have heard of because of the relation to Bird Box, and everybody had the Bird Box. Everybody was on the Bird Box train here for a minute, so this could be an interesting one. Bird Box was pretty cool, I have to admit. It was definitely. I'm surprised that something that can be that dark and uncomfortable could be that popular, but apparently it was. So let's see what this one is. Ooh, this might be up my alley right here. Y'all, I might have been sleeping on this one. Got a little football element right here. I'll have to throw this on. You're gonna see a little bit of history right here. I'm gonna put this on my want to read there. There we go, just to make sure I don't forget about it. All right, so that's on my want to read. Let's see if there's anything else on here. Remember, I heard some people talking about this one, Ring Shout. Oh, you are? You're reading Ring Shout? Oh, I'm digging your endorsement there. Let's see. Let me go ahead and take a look at this one. How far are you into it? Let's see. A dark fantasy historical novella that gives a supernatural twist to the Ku Klux Klan's reign of terror. D.W. Griffith is a sorcerer. Oh, this sounds good. This sounds like it almost goes into the historic fiction too. This could fit into a number of different categories. I think D.W. Griffith was the one. It was the guy that produced the movie Birth of a Nation. Like in the really early 1900s. Historians can check me on that if I'm off base on that one, but I think that's what he did. Oh, you know what, Nazy, I think you convinced me. I'm gonna throw that one on there. You say you're halfway through. It may be my favorite read of the year. Really? Wow. Okay. You convinced me. Okay, I don't know why it's not registering here, but I'm definitely want that. There we go. Let me see if they put that other one on here. I'll throw this one on here too. Who would have thought I would have 3 want to reads in the horror category here? Wow. Okay. Yeah, I think you got me on that one. I think you convinced me. Let's look at humor. I'm going to go on a limb and say that I probably haven't done anything with humor here. So might be a quick little zip through this one. I tell you what, this is definitely wins in the category for the most unique cover art here. Wow. Nicole Byer, very fat, very brave. Wow. So it looks like maybe some political oriented humor. Tender as flesh sounds amazing too. Huh. Some interesting stuff here. Hold on, let me go back a category here for a second. There was I wanted to look at this one here. Cage gets attacked and ends up in a hospital while trying to explain what happened. He gets flagged. He gets flagged for a psychiatric evaluation. This is one of those stories where he gets locked into a Cage feels it's a ploy. Even those closest to him try to convince him to return to the hospital to have more tests done, and eventually he does return, just not in the way everyone would have expected. Trigger warning: this book contains references to religious aspects that the reader may find offensive. The book contains violence against people of all ages. Okay, wow. So obviously very violent. So I don't know. I'm not sure what that says about me that I was feeling a little bit triggered to check that one out. So, all right. Strange Planet anyway won this category, 45,000 votes, won by a solid margin there. Let's see, nonfiction. What are the chances that I read anything nonfiction here in this category? Let's see. Oh, you know what? I wanted to read this one too. I did want to read this one, Stamped: Racism, Anti-Racism, and You. So that one won. Oh, and Hood Feminism. I've heard people talk about Hood Feminism too. I've heard a number of people speak highly of Hood Feminism. Stamped, let's see, average rating of 4.59. Hood Feminism, 4.45 average rating. So those are two that I definitely would have to think about. And then there's the Bob Woodward book that people were talking about there for a while earlier this year. Me and White Supremacy by Layla Saad. So far, I haven't read any books here, but I've heard of at least 3 of the books here so far. Let's see. I had to return Hood Feminism before finishing it. Not a deep dive, but very interesting. Okay. All right. Yeah, I've heard mostly good things about it. So it might be, I don't know if it appeals to women more than men or something. I don't know if I think it was written more for a woman's perspective, perhaps. There's Candace Owens' book that was doing pretty well for a while. Looks like it ended up with 4.47 average rating. Pete Buttigieg, who was a presidential candidate, he picked up 2,500 votes for his book. So I don't want to get too political because I know everybody's got their own opinion politically. So, and I just, as a rule, I generally don't argue politics, definitely not on Facebook. I might say some political stuff on Twitter or something like that. But that's for another story. Let's see. Reading While Black: African-American Biblical Interpretation as an Exercise in Hope. Oh, that's interesting. There are a lot of books that have been done before. That's not one that I've ever heard before. So that could be an interesting one right there. Let's see. Best Memoir and Autobiography. I don't think that's a big surprise that Barack Obama won that one. Certainly a huge publicity tour that he had been on. And of course, the timing was probably good, in a presidential election year. So he got a lot of publicity for that. So not surprising there that he won this category pretty handily. Let's see what else. You can see Alex Trebek right there. And of course, a lot of people, yeah, it's just tough with Alex Trebek passing away that his book is performing pretty well there. 28,976 votes, so almost 29,000 votes. Let's see. You can see the Mary L. Trump book that was kind of controversial. She kind of went in a different direction from most of the family. Oh, Jessica Simpson. I didn't know she had a book out. Nor did I know about Mariah Carey. That's interesting. The meaning of Mariah Carey. She was quite the pop sensation for a time in the 90s. I presume she still is. Jenna Bush Hager. Everything beautiful in its time. So, see what that's. I wonder what that's all about. Shares moving, funny stories about her beloved grandparents. Oh, okay, that could be kind of interesting. Let's see. Anything else here that's jumping out at me? Not really. What's this one right here? That's certainly some interesting cover art there. So some interesting categories here. History and biography. Let's take a look at that. Caste, The Origin of Our Discontents. I've actually heard of that book. Oh, that could be an interesting book. I could see that. That's an interesting topic there. There's James Patterson. James Patterson, mostly known for writing fiction. I've read a number of James Patterson books over the year, but he does a lot of, I've come to find out over the years that he does a lot of nonfiction stuff. And he actually has a book about John Lennon that's either out or coming out really soon. So I might check that out. John Lennon is a fascinating character. I should say character. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. A historical figure that I've always found interesting, because of his music and his activism. Let's see. Oh, John Meacham. His Truth is Marching On. John Lewis and the Power of Hope. That could be very interesting. John Lewis is a very inspirational figure to a lot of people. Looks like Bill O'Reilly's still writing books. Killing Crazy Horse. Yeah, I think I'm going to pass on that one. All right, let's see what we got over here. Best Science and Technology. Okay, we're definitely drifting away from what I would normally read. Food and cookbooks. So, all right, well, so those are some of the winners from the Goodreads Choice Awards 2020, and some that I definitely can see where people were going. For those of you who weren't here early, I talked about some of the more popular categories that you would expect, like best fiction. And I mentioned that I had not read The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, but I've heard of it. Just had not read it. I'd heard of the next 4 books, and I read 3 of them. Of course, I read American Dirt, Such a Fun Age, and My Dark Vanessa. I've heard of Anxious People, and I almost picked it up a couple of times. So maybe I should reconsider picking that one up. So that's what I had going on in that particular category. This is probably the category where I would read most. And I did mention real life as one that I was kind of the convergence of race and LGBTQ plus sounded kind of interesting. And then again, for those of you who weren't here earlier, a little mild beef here with the guest list. I did like the guest list. I didn't love it, but I did like it. It was okay. But the next 2, I definitely preferred to the guest list. And you can see that I picked The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James as my choice in this category. And Home Before Dark, it was a coin flip. I could have gone either way. I did not have a great preference. And you can see that the voting was just narrow right there between the two, just a difference of 16 votes. And then when no one is watching, I definitely want to put this here as want to read. So I want to make sure that I add that to my list. And then the Harlan Coben book, that's one that I looked at too. You remember One-on-One? Got to refresh my memory with that one. Oh yeah, that was the closed circle trope on the snow The Snow-Covered Mountain. Okay, I remember that. I'll throw that on there as one that I might read at some point. And then Long Bright River, I talked about that one as well. Winter Counts is a book that I have. And then Night Swim was a book that I actually liked. But apparently the voters did not speak favorably of this particular book. So it ended up not performing quite as well as perhaps it could have. So there's that. So anyway, that's the Goodreads Choice Awards for 2020. And going through this, I was able to add a few extra books that I do eventually want to read. And let me see some other categories that I missed. I didn't look at young adult fiction. Let me go look at young adult fiction real quick. Let's look at young adult fiction. I think I missed that category. Best young adult fiction, Clap When You Land. That's a book that I have heard about. And let's see. That one, somewhat narrow victory there. Let's see, let me see what this is all about. See what they got going on here. Oh, okay. Yeah, I do remember this one. Yeah, that's one I would definitely consider reading. This one, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Okay, so this sounds like the first in a series that's coming up. Hey, this might be interesting. I might be willing to check that out. Let me go throw these. I'm doing this mainly so I don't forget. Oh, you know what? I was looking at this series and I thought about starting this particular series. I might actually end up doing that at some point. All right, let's see. Anything else here? The Maureen Johnson series, Truly Devious. I actually have all three of these books, and I keep telling myself to start with the first one, which is Truly Devious. And I keep talking myself out of it. Like, it's appealing, but it's not like the hook is not all the way in my mouth on that one. So I'm just not quite there yet. Tweet Cute is one that a lot of people were talking about at one point earlier this year. And that was one I did kind of look at. This Is My America sounded kind of good too. I don't know if I'm not familiar with this one. Let's see what this one is about. Punching the Air. You know what? I might have to throw these two here, and then we'll come back to these at another point. Darius the Great Deserves Better. All right, so some interesting selections there. All right, glad I got back in it to see that particular category because I had kind of skipped over that. Looked like they were going into a bunch of categories that I wouldn't necessarily jump into. Let's see, Lucy B. Let me see what you got here. I couldn't get into Truly Devious. Loved the hook for the book, but couldn't get past chapter 3. You know what? That's honestly what I feel like would happen to me if I jumped into it. I think you probably nailed one of the reasons that I haven't jumped into it yet, because I just can't shake that feeling that's kind of the sensation that I would be headed for. And I think that's one of the reasons why every time I pick it up and I move it closer to my reading, comfort zone, arm's length, I end up putting it back. So I don't know. There's just something holding me back from that. So I think you're probably summarizing how I would feel about it too, if I started reading it. Though I might give it a try, but I get the feeling if I don't make it past, I usually know if I'm going to finish a book. If I can't make it to second, third chapter, even if they're short chapters, sometimes I'll just grab the parachute and just bail out. Let me see if there's anything else that I wanted to, another category there. Young adult fantasy, middle grade, and children's picture books. Not necessarily stuff that I would read. So let me see something here. Oh, look at this. Amazon's the best books of 2020. Interesting. All right. Well, that was just wanted to kind of go through these lists and just see what what I thought versus what the other readers thought. And there's some interesting things here. You know, I might take a look at the Midnight Library. It won in a category that I was a little bit surprised that it won in, but I might end up taking a look at that. Crescent City is one that I think I am going to grab. I'm reading a Sarah J. Maas book right now, and I think that I like the way it started. It started really fast. Um, the Court of Rose and Thorns, I think it's called. Um, and it started really fast, so I liked it. It was compelling characters, an interesting storyline. It was fantasy. The world building so far seems to be kept at a minimum, which is kind of a deterrent sometimes for me with fantasy books. So, and then I'm looking at Brandon Sanderson. That's a hot author among booktubers right now, and so I'll probably look at maybe what book might be good to start with in terms of breaking in with Brandon Sanderson reading. So I'll look at that at some point and see, if there's something that I want to grab and get started with. So, yeah. So anyway, I appreciate everybody that jumped in here. And this was a totally spur of the moment for me jumping in here. Barbara Howard, thank you for stopping in. This was total spur of the moment video. I was sitting here and I thought about the Goodreads Choice Awards. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to, pop on here real quick, turn the light on, turn the camera on, and just start to talk my way through the Goodreads Awards. And one of the things that it did tell me, which I didn't necessarily need to be told, but it did tell me that I need to expand my reading interests and kind of maybe try some different categories. So I'm going to try to read more fantasy. And you can, as you look on the screen right here, there's 3 major categories that I don't typically read very much. Well, actually horror, I should say. I would probably normally, I don't have a problem with horror. Some people do. Some people are like, I'm not all about horror. I'm nothing really scary. I don't mind horror. I like it. I grew up watching horror movies, even when I probably wasn't supposed to be watching them. I still like to watch them anyway. And so I have no problem reading horror books. So horror, science fiction, and fantasy. Definitely 3 categories that I want to read more books from. And then historical fiction, when there are opportunities, such as this one. Actually, let me go ahead and grab that one right now. I almost forgot about that one. When there are opportunities to read some historical fiction that will be interesting without being too old, that they feel kind of period-like. There was a book that I was reading that was written in the 1970s, and it really felt like the 1970s. Not just, because there aren't cell phones, the internet and whatnot, but it just felt like a different style of writing that I wasn't quite, that I didn't find quite as appealing. So I don't know. I could be just a very finicky reader. Maybe others can feel differently about some older books. But then again, there are other older books that I don't mind reading. James Baldwin. I don't mind reading James Baldwin. Those are older books. I don't mind reading old Perry Mason books, with the courtroom mystery books. I don't have a problem reading those. So who knows what the difference was with that particular book. So anyway, coming up on 1 hour broadcasting here. And who knows, I might jump on here tomorrow night and talk some more about what's going on as we get toward the end of the year. I do have some videos coming up on the channel. Just released this week. I've released my reading wrap up for November 2020. So if you want to go and check that one out, that would be great. It was a pretty short week short month, I should say, because I spent most of the time writing for National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo, so I didn't read quite as much. And then what I did read was mostly nonfiction. So if you're not really big into nonfiction, then you might not be quite as interested in that. But what you might be interested in if you're a fiction reader is that I did just a little bit ago released my TBR for the month of December 2020. So this month, I'm going to also be releasing my picks for several categories, including fiction book of the year, fiction runner-up book of the year for me, nonfiction book of the year, nonfiction runner-up book of the year. Then I'm also going to pick my most pleasant surprise book of the year and my disappointing book of the year. the book that did not live up to the expectations, either mine or the expectations that maybe other people had, that maybe I just wasn't quite feeling it. So, which I guess is the same thing, is not up to my expectations. So look for those to be coming toward the back end of the month. I'm going to have all those filmed in advance, and I'll just be able to run those. So hopefully, I'll be able to relax a little bit and have some vacation time, some downtime to just chill out. And doing these kind of videos is a little bit more fun and a little bit more relaxing than doing the videos where I have to set up the camera and film it and then go in and edit it and make sure it sounds okay. Well, as opposed to this, where I can just come on here and just start to flow a little bit more. And, it pays to have a lot of experience as a radio announcer for sports. So I'm able to come on here and flow in a way that is just actually pretty comfortable to me. So that's kind of what I do. And I tend to enjoy it. So hopefully I'll have a chance to call some games here coming up soon, and I'll be able to get on the air and just kind of let her rip with some sports stuff. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, thanks everybody for joining, and those of you who came in and spent a little time, graciously gave me a little bit of your time this evening. I am much appreciative of that. And I like to come on here and have fun. It's not necessarily a numbers thing for me. It's more about getting on here, having fun, talking about things that I enjoy talking about. And when the audience comes, it's extra special. So appreciate all of you who came through, and look forward to catching up with you guys on a future broadcast. So everybody have a good night, and hopefully I'll get a chance to chat with you guys soon about some booktube stuff and maybe some authortube stuff if that's what you guys are into. So everybody have a good night.